I didn't expect to meet anyone the night I walked into that basement room, especially not him. The sign on the door just said, Anonymous Support Group, Tuesdays 7 p.m. No names, no labels, no explanations. That was the whole point. You showed up, you listened, you talked if you felt like it, and then you went back to your life pretending everything was fine. I was late, as usual. The circle of folding chairs was already half full when I slipped in, trying not to draw attention to myself. The room smelled faintly of burnt coffee and disinfectant, like every community center basement on Earth. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making everyone look a little more tired than they probably already were. I took the first empty chair I saw and stared at the floor, rehearsing the same lie I always told myself. I don't really need this. I'm fine. I just had a rough few months. That's when I noticed him. He was sitting across the circle from me, arms folded, one ankle resting on his knee. Dark hoodie, worn sneakers, jaw clenched like he was holding something back. He didn't look at anyone directly, but he was listening, really listening, in a way that made me uncomfortably aware of myself. When his eyes finally flicked up, they landed on me for half a second too long. Not in a creepy way. More like recognition. The facilitator, a middle-aged guy with kind eyes and a calm voice, cleared his throat. All right, welcome back everyone. Same rules as always, first names only if you want. You share what you're comfortable sharing. No pressure. People went around the circle, one by one. Some talked about anxiety, others about addiction, grief, anger they didn't know what to do with. I'd been coming for a few weeks, long enough to know that the raw honesty in that room could knock the air out of you if you weren't ready. When it was my turn, I swallowed. I'm Hubert, I said. And I guess I'm here because I feel like my life looks stable from the outside, but inside it's kind of falling apart. A few nods. No judgment. Just quiet acceptance. Then it was his turn. He shifted in his chair, rubbed a hand over his face like he was bracing himself. I'm Jacob, he said. His voice was low, steady, but there was tension under it. I'm here because I'm tired of pretending I don't feel lonely when I do. And I don't know how to fix that without screwing everything else up. Something about that hit me square in the chest. After the meeting ended, people lingered in small clusters, grabbing bad coffee, making awkward small talk. I usually bolted right away, but this time I stayed seated, pretending to check my phone. Hey, I looked up. Jacob was standing there, hands in his hoodie pockets. Hey, I replied, suddenly very aware of how tired I must look. He nodded toward the chairs. First time? I shook my head. Know yours? Yeah, he said. Didn't know what to expect. Same, I said, even though it wasn't true anymore. There was a brief, comfortable silence. Not awkward. Just easy. Well, he added, shifting his weight, I guess I'll see you next week? Yeah, I said, probably. We walked out together, pushing through the heavy door into the cool night air. The parking lot lights cast long shadows, and for some reason I noticed we were heading in the same direction. You parked on the street? He asked. Yeah, I said. Around the corner. Same, he replied. We walked side by side, not touching, but close enough that I could feel his presence. That quiet sense of recognition came back, stronger this time. Like the universe was nudging us and waiting to see if we'd notice. When we reached the corner, he stopped. Well, good night, Hubert. Night, Jacob. I watched him walk away, unaware that he'd just turned down the same street I lived on, unaware that our lives were already overlapping in ways neither of us could imagine yet, and neither of us had any idea that we were going home to the same building. I didn't think about Jacob again that night. At least, that's what I told myself. The truth was, I replayed the sound of his voice in my head while brushing my teeth, while kicking off my shoes, while standing in my kitchen staring at the fridge without opening it. There was nothing special about what he'd said. No flirting, no big moment. Just two strangers walking out of a basement together. Still, something had shifted. The next week crept by. Work was loud and chaotic. My phone kept buzzing with notifications I didn't want to answer, and every evening I debated whether I'd actually go back to the group. Part of me wanted to skip it. Another part, one I didn't fully trust, wanted to see if Jacob would be there again. He was. Same hoodie, different chair. When our eyes met, his mouth curved into a small, surprised smile, like he hadn't realized he was hoping I'd show up too. That time, we talked longer after the meeting. About nothing important. Jobs, music, how awkward those chairs were. We avoided anything too personal, like we were both testing the water, seeing how much weight it could hold. By the third week, it became a routine. We'd sit near each other. Sometimes we'd speak, sometimes not. Afterward, we'd walk out together, down the same stretch of sidewalk, talking a little more each time. It was easy in a way that felt dangerous. I caught myself looking forward to Tuesdays for the wrong reason. One night, rain started pouring halfway through our walk. Not a light drizzle, real rain, the kind that soaks you in seconds. Shit, Jacob laughed, pulling his hood up. I should have checked the forecast. Same, I said, already soaked through. We jogged the rest of the way, shoes slapping against wet pavement, until we ducked under the overhang of my apartment building. I froze. Jacob stopped short beside me, glancing up at the familiar brick facade, then back at me. You live here? He asked. My stomach dropped. Yeah, 3rd floor. He blinked once, then laughed. No way. What? I'm on the 2nd floor, he said. Unit 2B. For a second, neither of us spoke. The rain hammered down behind us, filling the silence. You're kidding, I said. I swear, he replied. I moved in like 3 months ago. I stared at him, my brain scrambling to reassemble reality. All those times we'd walked the same direction, the same street, the same damn building. We'd been strangers on purpose. I shook my head, a grin breaking through despite myself. That's kind of insane. Yeah, he said softly. It is. We stood there longer than necessary, water dripping from our clothes, neither of us making a move toward the door. Well, I finally said, I guess we don't have far to go. He hesitated. Do you want to... He stopped himself, then tried again. Do you want to grab a drink or something? I mean, not alcohol. Just tea? Coffee? I should have said no. Boundaries existed for a reason. Anonymous groups existed for a reason. Instead, I said, yeah, sure. We rode the elevator up together, standing too close, aware of it, but pretending not to be. When the doors opened on the 2nd floor, he didn't get out. When they opened on the 3rd, he followed me. My apartment was small but clean, lit by the warm glow of a single lamp. I kicked off my wet shoes, grabbed towels, handed one to him. Sorry, it's kind of basic, I said. He smiled. It feels lived in. I like that. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, mugs warming our hands. Outside, the rain kept falling, like it was sealing us inside our own little bubble. This feels weird, he admitted after a moment. In a good way, but weird. Yeah, I said. I was thinking the same thing. He looked at me then. Really looked. I'm glad it's you, he said quietly. My chest tightened. Me too. Neither of us moved closer. Neither of us crossed the line. But sitting there, sharing space in silence, I realized something important. We hadn't just met in a support group. We'd been circling each other for months. And now that we knew, there was no going back. After that night, everything changed. Quietly, but completely. Jacob and I didn't talk about what it meant that we lived in the same building. We didn't talk about boundaries or whether this was a bad idea. We just started orbiting each other in a different way. Sometimes we'd accidentally run into each other in the hallway. Other times, one of us would text something casual. You up? Or I made too much pasta. Want some? Like we weren't both aware those messages carried more weight than they should. At group, nothing changed on the surface. We still sat in the circle, still shared when it was our turn, still avoided eye contact during the heaviest moments, like we were protecting each other from seeing too much. But afterward, we always walked home together now. No pretending otherwise. One night, after a particularly heavy session, Jacob was quiet, more than usual. "You okay?" I asked as we unlocked the building door. "Yeah," he said automatically, then sighed. "No, not really. I didn't push, just held the elevator door open." Inside, he leaned against the wall, eyes fixed on the floor numbers as they lit up. "I hate how much I hold back in there," he said. "I say enough to sound honest, but not enough to actually be honest." I nodded. "Same." He glanced at me. "You ever feel like if you say the wrong thing out loud, it becomes real?" "All the time." The elevator dinged on the second floor. He hesitated. "You want to come in?" he asked. "Just for a bit." His apartment was smaller than mine, more minimalist. Fewer decorations. A couch that looked like it doubled as a bed for guests who never came. He kicked off his shoes and ran a hand through his hair, pacing like he didn't quite know what to do with himself. "I keep thinking there's something wrong with me," he said suddenly. "Like, fundamentally, everyone else seems to move forward. I just stall." I leaned against the counter, watching him. "You don't seem stalled to me." He laughed humorlessly. "You don't see the inside of my head." "True," I said, "but I see effort. That counts for something." He stopped pacing, looked at me like he was deciding whether to trust me with something fragile. "I haven't dated anyone seriously in years," he said. "Not because I don't want to. Every time it gets close, I panic, like I'm about to ruin someone's life by letting them know me." My chest tightened. The familiarity of that fear hit too close to home. "I don't think you ruin things," I said quietly. "I think you're just scared." He swallowed. "Yeah." The silence stretched, thick, but not uncomfortable. He sat on the couch. I sat beside him, leaving space between us. We both pretended wasn't intentional. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Yeah." "Are you scared of this?" He gestured vaguely between us. "Whatever this is." I didn't answer right away, because the truth was complicated. "Yes," I said finally, "but not in a bad way. More like scared because it matters." He exhaled, shoulders dropping like he'd been holding that breath all night. "Good. Me too." Our knees touched. Neither of us moved them away. For a moment, I thought he might lean in. I thought I might lean in. The air felt charged, like something inevitable was waiting for permission. Instead, he rested his head back against the couch and laughed softly. "God, this is such a cliché. Two guys meeting in therapy." "Hey," I smiled. "At least we're self-aware." We didn't kiss that night, didn't even hold hands. But when I stood to leave, he reached out and squeezed my wrist. Just briefly, like a promise he wasn't ready to explain yet. That night, lying in my bed, I realized something that both thrilled and terrified me. Jacob wasn't just someone I was getting close to. He was someone who could see me clearly, and I wasn't sure I knew how to handle that yet. The thing about living in the same building is that distance stops being an option. After that night in Jacob's apartment, I started noticing him everywhere. Not in a dramatic movie montage way, but in the quiet, domestic details of daily life. The soft thud of his door closing through the wall, his footsteps on the stairs when the elevator was slow, the low hum of music leaking faintly into the hallway when I walked past 2B. We didn't rush anything. If anything, we slowed down. Some nights we'd sit on my couch, shoulders barely touching, watching something neither of us cared about. Other nights we'd talk until midnight about things that felt safer. Bad bosses, childhood memories, stupid habits we couldn't break. We were careful, almost too careful. At group, something shifted too. Not outwardly. We still respected the space, still didn't reference each other directly. But I felt more grounded when Jacob spoke. Like, his honesty gave me permission to be a little braver with my own. One Tuesday, he said something that stuck with me. "I'm realizing I confuse being alone with being independent," he told the group. "And I think I've been using that as an excuse to not let anyone get close." I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. My chest was already tight. That night, we walked home in silence. "You were good in there," I said eventually. He shrugged. "Didn't plan to say that. It just came out. That's usually how the real stuff works." We reached the building, rode the elevator up together like always. When it stopped on the second floor, he didn't move. "Come up?" I asked. He nodded. In my apartment, the air felt different. He sat closer this time. I noticed it immediately. The warmth of his thigh against mine. The way his hand rested on his knee, fingers flexing like he was nervous. "I keep thinking about what you said," he murmured. "About being scared because it matters." "Yeah?" "I don't want to mess this up," he said. "I actually like what we're building." Slowly. "Even though part of me wants to just—" He stopped himself, exhaling sharply. "Jump ahead?" I offered. He smiled faintly. "Yeah." I turned toward him fully then. "We don't have to rush. But we also don't have to pretend there's nothing here." His eyes searched mine like he was looking for permission. "Can I do something?" he asked. My heart thudded. "Okay." He reached out. Not fast, not hesitant either, and rested his hand over mine. Just that. Skin on skin. No pressure. The contact sent a jolt through me that felt embarrassingly intense for something so simple. "Is this okay?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said, just as quiet. "It is." We stayed like that for a long time, fingers slowly intertwining, like we were teaching ourselves a new language. When he leaned in, it wasn't urgent. It wasn't desperate. Our first kiss was soft, careful, almost shy. But the moment our lips touched, something deep in my chest settled, like a puzzle piece sliding into place. He pulled back first, forehead resting against mine. "Wow," he breathed. "Yeah," I said, smiling despite myself. "Wow." We didn't go any further that night. No clothes came off. No promises were made. But when he left, he paused at the door, looked back at me and said, "I'm really glad it's you." So was I. Because for the first time in a long time, closeness didn't feel like a threat. It felt like coming home. After that first kiss, we didn't suddenly become a couple. If anything, we became more aware of everything. The way his name lit up my phone when he texted. The way my heart sped up when I heard his footsteps outside my door. The way silence between us now felt loaded instead of neutral. We were still careful, maybe too careful, but there was a new undercurrent humming beneath everything we did. One morning I ran into him in the laundry room. He was half awake, wearing sweatpants and a faded t-shirt, arms full of clothes he was clearly about to drop. When he saw me, his face softened in a way that made my chest ache. "Morning," he said. "Morning!" We stood there, machines rumbling around us, pretending this was normal neighbor behavior and not something else entirely. "I was thinking," he said, loading his washer, "maybe we should talk about us at some point." My stomach flipped. "Yeah, I was thinking the same." "Not right now," he added quickly, glancing at the humming machines. "Just soon," I smiled. "Soon sounds good." That night, after group, we didn't go straight home. We walked past the building, down the block, then another. The city felt quieter than usual, like it was holding its breath with us. "I've been replaying that kiss in my head," Jacob admitted, hands shoved into his jacket pockets. "Same," I said. "More than I probably should." He laughed softly. "I didn't think it would feel so grounding." "That's exactly the word," I said. We stopped at a small park, empty except for a flickering street lamp and a bench slick with evening dew. We sat anyway. "I need to be honest with you," he said after a moment. "I'm not good at relationships. I either overthink everything or disappear when it gets hard." I nodded. "I do the opposite. I stay, even when I shouldn't. I convince myself I can fix things." He looked at me. "That scares me a little." "Me too," I said. "But I think the scary part is also the honest part." He leaned back, staring up at the dark sky. "I don't want this to be another thing I sabotage." Then don't, I said gently. Just let it be what it is, two people trying. He turned toward me, searching my face. You really think it can be that simple? No, I said with a small smile, but I think it can be worth it anyway. He reached for my hand again like it was becoming second nature. This time, his thumb brushed slowly over my knuckles. I want to try, he said. So do I. When we walked back, our fingers stayed intertwined the whole way. In the elevator, he leaned in and kissed me again. Still soft, still careful, but a little more certain this time. When the doors opened on his floor, he hesitated. Do you want to come in, he asked. Just to sit. I don't want tonight to end yet. I followed him inside. We curled up on his couch, legs tangled, heads resting together. No rush, no pressure, just warmth and quiet breathing and the strange comfort of knowing we were choosing this moment together. At one point he whispered, "You know what's funny?" "What?" "We came to that group trying to fix ourselves." "And?" I murmured. "And somehow we found each other instead." I smiled into his shoulder, feeling something unfamiliar but welcome settle in my chest. Hope. And for the first time, it didn't feel fragile. The first time things felt hard between us, it didn't happen during some dramatic argument. It happened over breakfast. Jacob was in my kitchen, leaning against the counter, half listening while I talked about my day ahead. He nodded at the right moments, but his eyes kept drifting. When I finally stopped talking, the silence stretched a little too long. "You okay?" I asked. He blinked, refocusing. "Yeah, sorry. Just tired." I accepted that answer, even though something in his tone felt off. That was my habit, letting things slide until they stacked up. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment. I realized how easy it would be to fall into old patterns. Him pulling inward, me overcompensating, both of us pretending it wasn't happening. The next Tuesday, group hit closer to home than usual. A guy across the circle talked about how he disappeared whenever things got good. How safety felt foreign. Dangerous, even. Jacob's jaw tightened. His foot bounced. When it was his turn, he hesitated longer than usual. "I think I'm learning that connection doesn't scare me," he said slowly. "What scares me is being seen long enough for someone to decide they don't want me anymore." My chest ached. That night, instead of going back to either apartment, we walked. No destination, just movement. "I don't want to lose myself again," Jacob said suddenly. "I've done that before. Bent myself into what I thought someone wanted. I don't want you to do that," I said immediately. "I know," he replied. "But knowing doesn't stop the fear." We stopped under a streetlight. He turned to face me fully, eyes serious. "I need you to tell me something," he said. If this ever starts to feel like too much, if I start to feel like too much, I need you to say it, not pull away quietly." I swallowed. "Okay, but you have to promise me something too. Anything. If you feel yourself shutting down, don't disappear on me. Even if all you can say is, 'I'm struggling.' That's enough." He nodded, jaw tight. "I can do that." We stood there, close, not touching, like the gravity between us was being tested. Then he reached out, pulling me into him. Not desperate, not frantic, just solid. Real. "I don't want an escape with you," he murmured into my hair. "I want something that lasts." I wrapped my arms around him, holding on a little tighter than necessary. "Then we'll have to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable." He laughed softly. "Especially then." That night, we made love for the first time. It wasn't perfect or cinematic. There were pauses, nervous laughs, moments where we checked in with each other, whispered reassurances, took things slow when emotions crept too close to the surface. But when we finally lay tangled together afterward, his head on my chest, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my skin, it felt right. Not like fireworks, like grounding. "I'm still scared," he admitted quietly. "Me too," I said. He looked up at me, eyes soft. "But I don't feel alone with it anymore." Neither did I. And that was new for both of us. The morning after didn't feel awkward the way I'd always been told it would. No scrambling for clothes. No sudden emotional distance. Just Jacob blinking awake beside me, hair a mess, eyes soft and unfocused as he took a second to remember where he was. "Hey," he murmured. "Hey." He smiled, small and real, then tucked himself closer like it was the most natural thing in the world. That simple gesture did more to calm me than any reassurance could have. We stayed like that for a while, listening to the city wake up outside my window. "I don't feel regret," he said quietly, like he needed to say it out loud. "Me neither," he exhaled, relief obvious. "Good." What surprised me most was how normal everything felt afterward. Not boring, just steady. We made coffee, burned toast, teased each other about it. At some point, reality crept back in. Work emails, responsibilities, the shape of real life pressing in around us. That was when the fear tried to sneak back. Not all at once. Just a whisper in the back of my head. This is where things usually change. At group that week, we didn't sit next to each other. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Like we both instinctively knew we needed to protect the space. I watched Jacob talk about learning to stay present when things got good, and I felt proud of him in a way that startled me. Afterward, in the hallway, he bumped my shoulder lightly. "You good?" "Yeah," I said. "You?" He nodded. "Yeah." That night we talked, really talked, about expectations. About what scared us. About the fact that we were neighbors, that things could get messy, that neither of us wanted this to turn into something careless or secretive or half-finished. "I don't need you to promise me forever," Jacob said. "I just need to know we're choosing each other honestly, day by day." I took his hand. "I can do that." Weeks passed. Not without bumps. He had days where he went quiet. I had moments where I overanalyzed every pause. But this time, we caught ourselves. We spoke up. We didn't vanish. One night, months after that first meeting in the basement, we walked into the building together and laughed at the coincidence of it all. "Can you imagine?" Jacob said, shaking his head. "Living in the same building and not knowing any of this?" "I think about that sometimes," I admitted. "How close we were without realizing it." He squeezed my hand. "I'm glad we didn't rush. I'm glad we met the way we did." "Me too." Because what we were building wasn't a fantasy. It wasn't perfect or easy or guaranteed, but it was real. And for two people who'd spent so long trying to fix themselves in isolation, finding connection without losing who we were felt like the bravest thing we'd ever done. When we reached his door, he kissed me, slow, familiar, unafraid. "See you upstairs later?" he asked. I smiled. "Yeah, definitely." And for once, I didn't wonder how long it would last. I was just there, with him. The thing no one tells you about choosing someone, really choosing them, is that the quiet moments matter more than the big ones. Months after we met, long after the surprise of it all wore off, Jacob and I fell into a rhythm that didn't feel flashy enough to brag about, but felt solid enough to trust. Sunday grocery runs. Notes left on the counter. Him knocking on my door just to sit with me while I worked, not saying much, just existing in the same space. Me learning the difference between when his silence meant I need time and when it meant please don't let me disappear. We kept going to group. Separately, but together. Sometimes we shared victories there. Other times we admitted we were struggling. What mattered was that we didn't pretend anymore. Not with ourselves, not with each other. One night, almost a year after that first rainy walk home, we stood on the building's rooftop. The city stretched out in front of us, lights flickering like 1,000 tiny lives moving forward all at once. "Do you ever think about how close we were before?" Jacob asked. "Living here, passing each other without knowing." "Yeah," I said. "It's weird to think about." He leaned against the railing. "Part of me's glad we didn't meet sooner." "Why?" "Because I don't think I was ready," he said honestly. "And I don't think you were either." I considered that, then nodded. "You're probably right." He reached for my hand, fingers fitting into mine like they'd always belonged there. "I don't feel fixed," he added. "I still have bad days. I still get scared. So do I said. But, he continued, turning to me, eyes steady, I don't feel broken anymore. The words settled between us, heavy and gentle all at once. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a story about two people saving each other. It wasn't about therapy magically leading to love. It wasn't even about fate or coincidence, no matter how tempting that sounded. It was about two men who showed up honestly, at the same time, in the same place, and chose not to run. Later that night, back in my apartment, Jacob curled up beside me on the couch, head resting on my shoulder like it had 100 times before. You know, he said lazily, we never would have talked if we'd known we lived in the same building. I smiled. Probably not. Anonymous therapy group, he mused, kind of ironic. Yeah, I said softly, but maybe that's what made it work. We met without labels, without expectations. He hummed in agreement, squeezing my hand once. I don't know what the future holds. I've stopped pretending I do. What I know is this. We met when we were both trying to heal. We stayed because we chose honesty over fear. And somewhere along the way, without forcing it, we built something real. Not perfect, not dramatic, just real. And for the first time in my life, that feels like enough.